Welcome back. Happy Martin Luther King Day. We're in week 3 of our course. 7 more to go after this one. This week we're going to be discussing the prescriptive motif by taking a look at a novel, which is Sheldon's In His Steps, that asks the question over and over, what would Jesus do? There's a few reasons why this text is in its place in our syllabus. That first reason would be it gives us a great respite from having to wade through such a theory and language-dense Immanuel Kant, looking at the deliberative motif from last week. The novel gives us a fantastic read. It's a very quick read if you haven't gotten to it already. Beyond that, this text is fantastic because it allows you to live into a sort of a blending of the prescriptive motif with what we're going to be discussing next week in the relational motif. That is, how relationships inform ethical analysis when we base those relationships on some sort of prescriptive model, and in Sheldon's sense, the question, what would Jesus do for doing ethics? Right, so that's the reason that Sheldon is in here. You're going to find in the lecture number 1 for this week that Dr. De La Torre uses or discusses Sheldon and Joseph Fletcher, who was on the docket for next week, interchangeably, because there is quite a bit of overlap between the prescriptive motif of Sheldon and the relational motif of Joseph Fletcher. So know that that's why that's in there. Try to keep the weeks, parsed out in your mind as best as possible. I trust that that shouldn't be a hard thing to do. If you have trouble, give a peek at Fletcher's book. We're going to be reading it soon anyway, and you'll be caught up to speed fairly quickly on his argument and what he's doing. The second of 3 points that I'd like to make. The first was why we're reading Sheldon. The second one pertains to those 5 questions that you're asked to answer and post by Monday afternoons, I believe. And last week we talked about the first of those 5 questions, which was locating the author in their social context in order to have a better basis upon which to understand why they believe ethics should be done in a certain way. This week I want to give you a few sentences on why narrow down the author's thesis in just one sentence. This is an incredibly difficult skill to do very well, but it's an incredibly important skill, especially at the master's level. For students to be able to read an entire book or entire text and summarize that text in the simplest, the most succinct way. Now, this is going to be helpful for you as students in a few different ways. First, it helps you to really chew on and assess for yourself what are the most basic components of the author's argument. And in coming up with that, you will find that as you read a book and you reflect on it, the more that you engage this process of discovering the author's thesis in one sentence, the more quickly you're going to be able to articulate what that thesis is. Just a second, there's people walking by. How you're able to articulate that thesis in your writings and in your conversations with other people. It's a great cocktail conversation, so to speak, is to be able to say, oh yeah, Sheldon, and then rattle off his thesis as quickly as you can. Now, some theses, like the ones for Kant, are going to be very dense, very clause dependent, right? A lot of colons or semicolons. But the fact that you can get everything down in one sentence is very important. The second reason that this task is important is because it helps us to have a manageable sense of what the entire text is about, so that we can jump into our discussions online each week with a better orientation for how each of us as students are approaching the text, right? So our theses may differ, and that's okay. That could even be a basis of discussion right there, because it determines how we are reading, it helps determine how we are reading the text and appropriating it in our understanding of ethical analysis and advocacy. So those are the reasons. The third component that I wanted to discuss, just very, very quickly, pertains to our online discussions themselves. Fantastic conversations we began last week, talking about a very difficult and complex text, Groundwork for the Metaphysics of Morals. But not everybody participated in those conversations, and not every reply, in counting for your two replies for the week, were substantive in the sense of one meeting the word limit length, minimum length, and then two in furthering the conversation. I love to see a lot of acknowledgement of what other students in the class are saying, but try to push and try to move the discussion along. Along with that, we'll have two people posting prompts this week, right? And with those, when you reply with your initial posting, let's try to spread them out a little bit more. I realize the in-depth nature of the second discussion question that I posted for Kant last week may have been a little bit more than we wanted to bite off. But this week, make sure that we spread it out, and as you post your two replies, make sure you try to hit one reply in each discussion forum. With those things being said, happy Sheldon reading and Fletcher reading as you begin that next weekend. Happy Martin Luther King Day, and I look forward to engaging our conversations once again this week as we discuss Sheldon.